The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that he had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what? I think I can build a space elevator, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
The first is collaboration. Now, this is openness in the sense of the boundaries of organizations becoming more porous and fluid and open. The guy in the picture here, I'll tell you a story, his name is Rob McEwen. I'd like to say, I have this think tank, we scour the world for amazing case studies. The reason I know this story is because he's my neighbor. He actually moved across the street from us, and he held a cocktail party to meet the neighbors. And he says, you're Don Tapscott. I've read some of your books. I said, great, what do you do? And he says, well, I used to be a banker, and now I'm a gold miner. And he tells me this amazing story. He takes over this gold mine, and his geologist can't tell him where the gold is. He gives them more money for geological data. They come back. They can't tell him where to go into production. After a few years, he's so frustrated, he's ready to give up. But he has an epiphany one day. He wonders, if my geologists don't know where the gold is, maybe somebody else does. So he does a radical thing. He takes his geological data, he publishes it, and he holds a contest on the internet called the Gold Corp Challenge. It's basically $500,000 in prize money for anyone who can tell me, do I have any gold? And if so, where is it? He gets submissions from all around the world. They use techniques that he's never heard of. And for his $500,000 in prize money, Rob McEwen finds $3.4 billion worth of gold. The market value of his company goes from $90 million to $10 billion. And I can tell you, because he's my neighbor, he's a happy camper. You know, conventional wisdom says talent is inside, right? Your most precious asset goes out the elevator every night. He viewed talent differently. He wondered who were their peers. He should have fired his geology department, but he didn't. You know, some of the best submissions didn't come from geologists. They came from computer scientists, engineers. The winner was a computer graphics company that built a three-dimensional model of the mine where you can helicopter underground and see where the gold is. He helped us understand that social media is becoming social production. It's not about hooking up online. This is a new means of production in the making. And this idea agora that he created, an open market agora for uniquely qualified minds, was part of a change, a profound change in the deep structure and architecture of our organizations and how we learning process. You know what? This is not about technology, although technology is an important part of it. It's about a change in the relationship between the student and the teacher in the learning process. And it's about a change in the way that knowledge is acquired. So I'm going to end with a story that may not make you feel that great. It's a disturbing story, but it will cause you to think, which is my big goal. Okay, so I was invited in June, fortunately in time to get this story into the book, to spend a 3-hour lunch with all the deans and the head of Florida State University. And they were doing a capital campaign of $1 billion, and they want to position themselves as the 21st century university, so they asked me to come in and talk to them about this. We sat around for lunch and we talked for 3 hours. And I gave my view, which you've just heard. The old model of pedagogy is wrong for a new generation. We need to change the nature of learning and the role of the institution and its relationship to other institutions in society, because kids learn differently. And we have a new medium of communications that enables us to move from teaching to discovery. And so one of the deans turns to this guy right here. His name is Joe O'Shea, 22-year-old. He had a nice white shirt on. It's a picture from him that day. And he's a student, and said to him, well, Joe, what do you think? And Joe says, well, I kind of buy it, what Don is saying, because I think I do learn differently. I'll give you an example. I don't read books. Now, the look around the room was kind of the look on your face right now, okay? This look of horror. And he says, I think I know what's in books, but I don't really read books. He said, I can find a lot of information on the web, and if I need to know what's in a book, typically I don't need to read the book. I need to know what's the best chapter. And with Google Books, you can get any chapter of any book free, and I'm pretty good at figuring out what's a good chapter. And when I do read an actual book, I don't go from the beginning to the end. I sort of, like a website, I kind of hyperlink around in the book to try and absorb it. And I find that that's a lot faster. So the dean of the film school turns to the group and says, well, Joe, that's pretty interesting. I don't know if that's something that's fascinating and holds a lot of potential, or if you just described the end of civilization. So we have this amazing conversation. It goes on for 3 hours. I had a chartered plane for the day, and Joe was going back to the same city I was going to. So I said, come on, hitch a ride with me. I want to get to know you. So I sat down with him. I interviewed him on the plane. And I said, tell me about yourself. I said, what kind of student are you? He says, well, I'm a good student. I said, how good? He says, well, straight A's. Doesn't read books. I said, tell me about, well, do you do other stuff? And he says, yeah, well, I'm the president of the Students' Council, and I had a $10.2 million budget, and I was on 18 universities committees, and I chaired a lot of them, so that took a lot of time too. And my girlfriend's from New Orleans, and when Katrina came, we went down there to see if we could help. And in the 9th Ward, the big devastated area, there was no healthcare clinic, so I set one up. I said, what do you mean you set one up? He said, well, you can do anything you want. You have the internet, you need an air conditioner, you can get an air conditioner. I said, wow, that was great. He says, yeah, it's still functioning. It sees 9,000 people a year. It's called the Ninth Ward Healthcare Clinic. He set it up. He says, and I'm also, me and a couple of buddies, we founded the Global Peace Exchange. That has 65 countries involved now. We're hoping to have a big global summit of heads of state. I said, oh, that's it. Tell me about your family. He says, he sighs, he says, well, both my parents actually passed away last year. One got sick and the other was an accident. And I'm the eldest sibling, so I keep my family together, my younger sibs, and they live in a different city. So I take them on World of Warcraft missions. And it's a way of kind of keeping the family going together because we lost our parents. And I said, wow, what are you doing next year? He says, well, I'm going to school in London. I'm really excited because I'm going to have health care. And, you know, our family was poor. We just never went to a doctor. But now I'm going to have the UK healthcare system. He knows all about the UK healthcare system. And we're talking about education. He knows about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he's quoting Plato, and he knows about fiction, and he doesn't read books. So I said, well, what are you doing in London? He says, I'm taking a master's degree in philosophy at Oxford. Oxford and Cambridge would be the two hardest places to get into in the world, and he doesn't read books. And I said, wow, you got financial aid? Yeah, he says, I got a scholarship. I said, oh, that's great. Where'd that come from? He says, it's called a Rhodes Scholarship. The only Rhodes Scholar from Florida this year doesn't read books. And he is as knowledgeable and deeply informed as any person that I've met in years.